Hi, Mrs. Rhubarb. How are you? And I just want to say congrats to your new addition to the family, little veggie. So I saw that, you actually handed me a handout from your breeder of what recommendations and little tips and tricks on what to do with veggie um, now that you've become his new owner, basically. So let's go over them together, shall we? So, for concerning to never giving the intranasal injections, there is no evidence proving that intranasal is dangerous or that purebred cats are more prone to getting a reaction than non-purebred cats. It's kind of like humans, where it's like, regardless of who gets the vaccine, if you have a reaction, you have a reaction. If you happen to not have a reaction, you don't have a reaction. Kind of same deal. And I'll most likely be making this kind of example as we go along this handout. So with him just being a purebred kitten, if he gets a reaction, it does happen. It happens to normal cats, happens to purebred cats, happens all the time. All right, next up. So only give killed vaccines and never modified live vaccines. So, and then she said that they recommend the Fort Dodge Vax PCT. So the vaccines that we give are actually killed, such as the rabies vaccine and the feline distemper. Now, regarding the Fort Dodge Vax, that may be a killed vaccine, but that has actually been discontinued. So you won't really be seeing much of that around these days. So next, regarding the feline leukemia slash FIV or the rabies vaccine, they said it's a do it at your own risk vaccine. So let me actually find you a handout to talk about the feline FIV and FLV. All right. So I found a handout here. So let's just kind of break it down of the differences between the two. So for both vaccines, let me clarify. The best way I can describe it is that it does depend on your cat's lifestyle. Do you plan veggie to be strictly indoors, or do you want veggie to be in and out, or become an outdoor cat, or him have access to the outdoors? And also, do you have other cats? I ask this because because in order to see if these vaccines would be safe for veggie to take, let's go over them. So for FLV, that is spread by example if he happens to be outside and he drinks water or eats food from the same bowl from a cat that is FLV positive. Now, if he's not vaccinated against it, then chances are he will become FLV positive. So that is something to keep in mind. And then for FIV, if he just so happens to be outside, or, heaven forbid, you have other cats in the house and they get into a fight and they end up biting each other or having kind of not gaping, but kind of like having open wounds or injuries of them obviously being in a fight. Let's just say another cat bites veggie and they're FIV positive. Without the vaccine, veggie could too become FIV positive as well. So that is the vaccines where it says do at your own risk. That is up to you if you want to take those vaccines, those particular vaccines or not. However, if you plan on having him outdoors, it's something that we would strongly suggest. Now, for the rabies, that is one I will have to disagree with your breeder with, because for rabies, that is a zoonotic virus. So if veggie happens to be outside and let's say they got bitten by a raccoon or whatever animal tends to have rabies in the vicinity, and veggie's not vaccinated against it, he can actually spread it from not only other cats, but can spread it to dogs and even to humans, because rabies just doesn't seem to care who it's around as long as it's in some kind of host. So, so with rabies being kind of scary to deal with, that is actually a vaccine where a lot of places require it by law because it is dangerous and pretty fatal to humans and animals alike. So the rabies vaccine, that is more of like you need it or you're going to be biting the bullet later for with due the consequences because it is a dangerous virus. Moving on. If you would like to get either of the vaccines, to give a antihistamine within 20 minutes prior to any vaccine being given. So I can see what your breeder was saying, or the precaution wise of that. However, because this is Veggie's first visit, we don't know whether or not if he's allergic to the vaccine or not. So what we typically do is that we give a vaccine, and we give the vaccine, do a general physical exam, all this other fun stuff, and you take Veggie home. Now, if Veggie happens to have like facial swelling, or in rare cases, anaphylaxis, like they stop breathing, like they don't really seem like they're breathing, then we do have owners bring their pets back and we give them diphenhydramine, which is basically Benadryl, to help reduce the reaction. So for Veggie's first visit, we're going to give vaccines to, not only to protect him, but also, keep him healthy all year round. Now, if he does, let's say, like I said, have facial swelling, then, by all means, bring him back and we will give him the antihistamine. So that way we can make a record of next time he comes in for shots, we know to give him a dose of the antihistamine 20 minutes before we give the actual vaccine. So she was right in a sense. However, for being a first time, it's kind of that saying, there's a first for everything. You don't know until you kind of figure it out. So for this initial visit, we will just give the vaccines, and if there's a reaction, we bring Veggie back. We will give him a shot of Benadryl essentially, and we'll get him taken care of, and we'll make a note saying that for next time he does need an antihistamine in order for the reactions to be lessened. All right, so for the next one, it is, let me see, kittens get 2 sets of vaccines from 7 to 12 weeks old, 1 additional vaccine as they turn 1 year old, and also 1 more on their 2nd birthday. We do not recommend a repeat of these vaccines every year, for there is an increased chance of cancerous tumors forming at the injection site. So this one's interesting because there was an epidemic back in the 80s where cats were getting fibrosarcomas that were actually caused by the vaccines, and nobody knew what was going on. They just noticed that their cats would get a vaccine, and I believe it would be about 3 to 6 months later or so, or maybe or weeks, something of that nature, the area where they got the vaccine would become more, like the area would be more swollen than it ever should be. Like it's weeks after a doctor's visit and the vaccine spot is still pretty large. So that was happening a lot back in the 80s, but we have found more solutions now to make sure that your cat does not get, or at least reduces the chances of them getting vaccine-induced fibrosarcomas, such as intranasally. Hey, here we go. Intranasally, they can get the vaccine intranasally, or if they are to give an injectable vaccine, like with a syringe, then they would give the different vaccines in different spots. Like rabies will be in the lower left part of the cat, and the feline distemper will be in the lower right of the cat, and things like that. What we spread the vaccines around to make sure that if there is any increased swelling in a particular area, we know we know which vaccine went to which part of the body. All right, we're almost done. Never give one vaccine at a time, and never give your cat vaccines if they're ill in any way. So this is true. If your cat is sick, has a fever, or is just showing signs of them being unwell, then we will hold off on the vaccines until we figure out what's going on with your kitten and make sure that they're in as tip-top shape they can be before we give vaccines. Now, regarding not giving vaccines, like I mentioned a little bit ago, we have given, the feline distemper, as I like to call it, and like rabies, like we give it in different spots of the animal so that, like I said, if there's any swelling in one particular side of the body, we know which vaccine went there. And now lastly, never give your kitten the FIP vaccine for any reason. This vaccine is dangerous. So I'm not saying that your breeder is right or wrong. However, this vaccine will be is not recommended because there have been studies shown that there are varying results of the vaccine and its kind of effectiveness. So basically it's just not recommended. Not to mention your cat has to be tested in order to see if it's really needed. But like I said, with varying results, you don't know. It may work, it may not work, but kind of overall, I don't see many people recommending it. So I hope that does answer your questions and concerns about the health for little Veggie. And we hope to see you hopefully not too soon.